When I think of games from my childhood, I think of games like Five Nights at Freddy's, Bendy and the Ink Machine, Tattletale, Doki Doki Literature Club, and for the topic of this video, Yandere Simulator. Yandere Simulator first started its development in 2014, and when I first discovered it, it was not long after its development. In fact, when I first discovered it, it was when Senpai would only stand under a tree. There was an indestructible rival, and there were only the Rainbow Boys and the Rainbow Girls implemented into the game. And when this game first started development, the other games that were popular were horror games like Five Nights at Freddy's, visual novel games like DDLC, and also first-person shooters like Fortnite. I know Fortnite didn't come out till about 2017, but that's not the point. But the point is that me as a growing child wanted something different than these, genres, and Yandere Simulator kind of gave a twist on that. So what is supposed to be the plot of Yandere Simulator? Well, the main story of Yandere Simulator follows a girl named Ayano Aishi, who is in love with a guy named Taro Yamada. Since she is a yandere, which is a term that describes a woman who is so in love with a man that she will do anything, including violent actions to get with him, you as the player play as her and try to get rid of 10 rivals within 10 weeks in order to confess your love to Taro Yamada, who she refers to as Senpai. Now, you would think that after over a decade of development of this game, as of recording this in 2025, that all 10 rivals would be implemented and that you would pretty much have almost a completed game. But you would be wrong about that. In fact, there are only 2 completed rivals, and I wouldn't even say fully completed 2. The second rival, Amai Odayaka, doesn't even have any voice lines, and she barely is, developed well. So, for the past 10 years, what has the developer, who goes by Yandere Dev, been doing? Well, what he did is he added a whole different mode called 1989 mode, which follows Ayano's mother, Ryoba Aishi, and her story of being a yandere in 1989, which is the footage that you see here. And he also added a bunch of Easter eggs, he changed some hair physics, he added different elimination techniques, but he never really focused on the main part of the game. I was following the game when it was first in development and kind of stopped following around the time when Osana Najimi, the first rival, was finally put into the game, and I re-downloaded the game years later only to find that the second rival was in, and that's it? I was confused. I was, I've been away from this game for years, living my own life, doing my own thing, and yet it seems like this game has been going in slow motion, almost as if it's never left 2016. And the problem is that I think that this game could be really good. I think that this game could have really good story, and could have really good lore, and could have really good gameplay, but certain aspects are more focused on than other aspects that need to be focused on. And that's what I'm going to get into. I'm going to get into how the development process is just not good at all, how the lore is poorly executed, and how overall the game could be made better. Like, what could be done to make this game better? And I'm not going to just ramble, I'm going to kind of try to section this out as the best I can, but this is my first video, so please bear with me. Also, the video in the background as I speak is me doing a genocide run in the 1989 mode, which I will definitely talk about. I first want to start with the 10 main rivals who are in the present day version of the game. The 10 rivals are Osana Najimi, Amai Odayaka, Kizana Sonobu, Okaruto, Asurito, Muzakina, Midarana, Osoro Shidesu, Hanako Yamada, and Megami Saiko. Now, all of these characters follow a different trope. For example, Osana is a tsundere, who is a girl who is kind of like a little bratty, a little sassy to hide her true feelings. Mai Odayaka is like a sweetheart. She's kind, she's always willing to care for others. And Kizana is a snob. She's all full of herself. She thinks she's better than everyone. But then there are other archetypes in these 10 rivals. For example, Hanako Yamada, the 9th rival of the game for the 9th week, if you look at her name a little closely, her last name is Yamada, sharing the last name of your senpai, Taro Yamada. Hanako Yamada is Taro's younger sister, which means that one of your romantic rivals is his younger sister. And the dev has gone on to explain that, oh, it's not like that, like it's not weird like that, like trust, it's just like she likes jealousy. It is a little weird. It's really weird, actually. And she's not the only rival who has a weird dynamic. Muzakina is the nurse of the school. So a nurse who could be well into her 30s, logically, with how long it takes to become a nurse, is having feelings for a boy who is 18 with an asterisk. I need to say 18 asterisks because there is no way all of these characters are 18, and I will get into that in a later section. Furthermore, the other adult rival is Mita Rana, who is a substitute teacher, and for some reason she's really sexy and she just wants to get with senpai so badly. Like, is that not weird? Like, did he as in the dev, like, did he not think this is weird? Because it is weird to me, and I think it's weird to a lot of people, and I actually have a few solutions for these 3 characters alone. And there's a lot of issues with the other characters, but I will just do these. I'm gonna start with Mita Rana because in my opinion she's honestly the easiest one to fix. So scratch her complete archetype of the character. She's not gonna be a substitute teacher. She is not gonna be an adult. She's gonna be a student, like the rest of the rivals should be. She's a student who is excelled really highly in her academics and is a teaching assistant or a TA. So there's still that kind of archetype that the dev wants of like a higher academic figure, but doesn't have the weird dynamic of an adult substitute teacher who is weirdly sexy, and instead is just another student who happens to go to the school who happens also to be really smart and helps out the teachers. Now, for Muzakina, I didn't want to do like the same thing and just like make her a student who happens to be really good at like bio or something. But one thing that the dev mentions about Muzakina is that she's really klutzy. Oopsies, she's so klutzy and she's constantly dropping things. That's like a hazard. Like, I would never, if I was the headmaster, you would not see me hiring her. Anyway, that's not the point. Change her character to maybe a student who happens to be in the infirmary a lot. And she's a very sweet but klutzy student and is constantly injuring herself. She gets taken care of by the nurse, who is a separate character who is very protective of her. Kind of have a similar dynamic of how Osana, Najimi, and Raibaru, her best friend, have, where Raibaru is always there for her no matter what. And so, again, you're taking away the weird adult part, but you're still keeping that, klutzy, gets injured, needs to be helped kind of archetype that I think the dev was going for. Now for Hanako Yamada. She can exist as a character. Like, if the dev really wants Taro to have a younger sister, that is fine. Like, there's nothing weird about having a younger sister. What is weird is having the younger sister as a rival to get your senpai's love. That's the weird thing. Like, I just think maybe she shouldn't even be a rival at all. She could be in the game. She could exist in the game. She could be an obstacle in the game, but she doesn't have to be a rival. I think just completely a different character, like nothing to be done. Scratch the whole character. She can exist, she can be a part of the game, but don't make her a rival, because that's weird. Fighting for the love is weird. It's like it's not even pseudo ancestral at that point, it's just ancestral, and it's so gross, and I don't know why this was ever implemented in game. So in conclusion, scratch her whole character, get a new character in there. I'm sure there are plenty more archetypes besides the sibling one. Next, I kind of want to move on to a section I'd like to call the misuse of Japanese words and the misuse of a Japanese high school environment. And I would just like to say, as a disclaimer at first, that I am not Japanese. I have never been to Japanese school at all, but I do know Japanese. I am currently learning Japanese in my studies as we speak, so I do know a little bit about the language itself. And I want to start with just a little explanation of how Japanese words work. So, original Japanese words are written in either kanji or hiragana, and those are two writing systems for words that originate from Japan or China for kanji, have their own meanings. But then there's also something called katakana. Katakana is used when there is a foreign word that is translated into Japanese, and that's how that writing system works. For example, the word beer in English. In Japanese, it's just biru. So they take the word and just basically transliterate it into their own language and use a completely different writing system for it. How does this relate to Yandere Simulator at all? Well, I'm going to use one character in particular for an example, Midori Gurin. Midori Gurin is this phone addict character who in development was characterized as like knowing that she exists in a video game and always going, Yandere dev, when's the next update? And she was supposed to be a representation of the audience, and she would constantly be killed off by Yandere dev, which is a little weird. But anyway, the point is, her first name, Midori, means green, and her last name, Gurinu, is just the word green in a Japanese accent, like in almost a katakana way of saying green. So her name is green, and guess what? She has green hair. Like, that's just poor naming. And she's not the only character who has naming like this. There is a character who is a part of the art club whose name is Enpitsu Byoga. Enpitsu in Japanese means pencil, and byoga means drawing. So this art club character's name is pencil drawing. Do you see where I'm going here? It's not creative. These are not names of actual people. And it's not just background characters either. Osana Najimi, the first rival, Osana Najimi means childhood friend. And guess what she is? The childhood friend. There's also Asurito, who is the athlete rival of the game. And if you think about it a little bit, Asurito just sounds like you're saying athlete in almost a katakana way. It's lazy. Kizana Sunobu is another example of this. Kizana in Japanese generally means like snobbish or kind of like prudish, and Sunobu is just the katakana version of snob. And the dev has gone on to quote unquote change these names by giving them actual names and saying that, oh, some of these characters' names are just nicknames, but I think that's low-key just an excuse for his bad naming of characters, and he just needed a cover-up. he said that part of the quote-unquote lore is that at Akedemi High, they give each other nicknames for each other based off what they do, which is like, you wouldn't, if like you had a friend in the US who was part of sports, you wouldn't, hey, call them athlete. You wouldn't be like, hey, athlete, what's up? Like, you wouldn't do that. Even the name of the school itself, Akedemi, just sounds like you're saying academy in a katakana way. It's lazy, it's not creative, and honestly, I could just keep going on and on about this. And speaking of Akedemi High, let's talk about it, because it is a mess of a school. According to the lore of the game, if that's what you can even call it, Akedemi High was created by Psycho Corp for the daughter of the head of the Psycho Corp company, so that she could live out her fantasy of a normal high school but in a prestigious way. But no, she's an adult. That's why all of the characters are 18, guys. Don't worry, they're all 18, so it's completely okay to sexualize them. But no, that's not how it works. If you want a high school setting to actually be realistic, especially one that has different grades and ages, they can't all be 18. In Japan, junior high is 3 years, and like high school, for a lack of better words, their high school is also 3 years. So doing the math a little bit, the high school would be sophomore, junior, senior in American terms. And so the ages of these characters should technically be, you know, maybe 15, 16, 17, 18. Only a few are 18. Not all of them are 18. And if you're trying to create an environment that is a high school but not a high school, they wouldn't all be 18. They would be maybe 18, 19, 20, 21. Like, it's just, it feels like putting this little, oh, it was made for the daughter so she could live out her fantasy, was just an excuse for the dev to live out his fantasy of, you know, getting away with weirdly sexual and inappropriate things within a high school setting that should definitely not be happening. And let's talk about those inappropriate things. One of the main ways to get help from Infochan, who is a character who will provide services to the player to help with your elimination of your rival, is to take panty shots of the female characters in the game. Panty shots. And Infochan's reasoning is that she can use it as like blackmail to get them to do things or to give her money or whatever, but that's just ridiculous. You can blackmail anyone in a variety of different ways and it not be panty shots. Like, that's just creepy and weird. And there's a whole system of like, there's the bully characters and their panty shots are worth more for some reason. It's just disgusting. And Yandere Dev himself has proved that this system does not even have to exist in order to get info points, because there are the bounty option. The bounty option is to basically take a picture of a character in a bad situation. For example, like take a picture of one of the characters playing games when he's supposed to be studying, and you get a bunch of info points. You can do that with all of the characters instead of having to take panty shots. There are also bugs that you can set, like recording devices that you can set for Infochan in like certain rooms, like the teacher's room, in the headmaster's office, and like the photography club, and those also provide you info points. So the whole point of panty shots is completely useless at this point, and just now in the game, because Yandere Dev has this weird thing for it, for high school girls' panties. It's weird. And this is not the only time when panties are used as a mechanic in the game. In one of the main ways to like increase your stats or stuff like that, you can wear different panties to do certain things. Like, for example, in this gameplay that I'm doing, I'm wearing like the speedy shorts ones, which just makes you run faster, but like maybe instead of panties it could be some sort of accessory, like for example the matchmaking panties. Instead of them being panties, why not have them be like a cute little bow, a little heart necklace, like, you know, literally something, anything other than undergarments, because that's just creepy. Even more so, there's a character, a rival actually, in 1989 mode named Chigusa Buzushima, and she is a guavure, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, idol. A guavure idol is someone who poses and models for swimsuit brands and for lingerie and overall just sexy photo shoots. And the thing about this idol in particular that really pisses me off is that she's a first year in the school, like she's in like class 1-2 or whatever, which means that she's the youngest. And if this were to actually take place in a high school, like how it seems like the dev wants it to be, no matter how many excuses he makes, that's like a 15-year-old. That's a 15-year-old doing provocative photo shoots, and it's just I'm sorry, it just really makes me upset. So what's the solution to all of this over sexualization within the game? It's simple. Don't have it. It's not necessary. Chigusa Buzushima does not have to be a grave idol. She could instead be maybe just a regular idol, or she could just be a model. She doesn't have to be specifically one that's only does photo shoots that are sexual. She could just be a model, and that would still keep her character of being, you know, desirable for all of the boys, including Senpai in 1989 mode. Now I want to talk about kind of the main thing that I have a problem with, which is trying to build a backstory for a story that you don't even have finished. Now, like I said earlier, only 2 out of 10 rivals in the main story are finished, and I'm saying 2 very nicely because, again, a mine doesn't even have any voice acting. And anyway, point is, he made all of 1989 node, which, like I said before, follows Ryoba Aishi and her story, and this is completed, and it's not bad, it's not awful. It tells the story of each elimination method that Ryoba went through to get her senpai. But here's the problem. The problem is that, yeah, Ryoba had a story, she had 10 rivals, but why does it matter? Why should we care if we don't even have our main character finished? The main character of Yandere Simulator is Ayano Aishi, so she should have been focused on this whole time. Even more so, last time I checked, Yandere Dev is not doing anything within the main story and is in fact just going even more back in time by adding like Ryoba's mother and Ryoba's grandmother and like talking about their stories on his website. I don't really have the energy to read through the paragraph lengths of their story because that is something that can be implemented after you finish the main game. Lore is not something that you tell the player. Lore is something that the player figures out on their own. Lore is something that the player discovers. I think Five Nights at Freddy's is an amazing example for this, especially since they came out around the same time. Five Nights at Freddy's, even in the original game when there wasn't a full timeline, had little Easter eggs of, you know, it's me with Golden Freddy and the newspaper clippings changing and all of that stuff. But Scott Cawthon didn't outright tell you, go, oh, here, look, it's me, oh, that's like the younger brother in the suit, that's the crying child, I actually don't remember if this crying child, but point is, he doesn't say that. It would be better in Yandere Simulator if instead of talking about Ryoba and Ryoba's mom and Ryoba's grandmother, instead of talking about them in an essay-like length on your website, which honestly most players probably don't even look at. Instead, maybe put a little hints in. And I know that the dev is able to do this because he's done it before. He has created, like, what are they called? Cassette tapes of voice recordings from, like, the journalist and Ryoba herself and the headmaster. And the journalist ones are honestly genuinely interesting. I listened to all of them, and you learn, like, at the end that Info-chan is the journalist's daughter, which really adds a lot to the story. The story that is not finished, of course. There's also the whole thing of the Basu sisters, Inkubasu and Sakibasu, who are two background characters within the present day, and they're demons, they're incubus and succubus, and they are looking for something on campus or someone, and lo behold, it's this monster that's under the confession tree that's been tied there ever since Ayano's ancestors trapped it there. And that could be really interesting for the story. That could be cool. That could be interesting. That could be like, yeah, ooh, lore, wow, oh my god, timeline, let's do this. But not when the game is not done yet. This would be a great story to add. This would be a great backstory to add, great lore to add, to further grow the game into something past just girl likes boy but too much and she's obsessive so she must kill. It grows it more, but you can't grow it if you don't even have the seed planted. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Yandere Dev should have finished the main story game first and then focused on other projects like this. And I'm gonna bring this back to Scott Cawthon and FNAF, because Scott Cawthon made his games first, and then he added little things within, like, the URLs and the, like, scripts of the websites and all of that stuff he did during, I believe it was Sister Location. At the end of the day, I'm just kind of left wondering what could be done? Like, how could this game come to fruition? Because a lot of people have offered Yandere Dev help. A lot of people have looked at his code and how he works it. There are a lot of videos on it. I'm sure I can link it once I find them. And yet he refuses the help. He refuses critique. He refuses any sort of critique. Like, he thinks that this is a solo project that he can do on his own, but he clearly can't because he cannot finish the game. I really wish that this game was completed and well made and, you know, not bugs of the bodies flying around and stuff like that, because as someone who plays open world games such as, you know, Genshin Impact, but then also I play games like Mouthwashing and, again, Bendy and the Ink Machine and Doga Doga Literature Club, I want a game like this. Even after years after first being introduced to it, I want a game like this. It's interesting, it's a great concept, and it just falls flat on its head. And it leaves me questioning that after over a decade of development and barely even 2 rivals, but a bunch of other stuff, will I even ever see the 10th rival before I retire? The development of this game is so slow that it's so hard to keep interest, and I think that's why Yandere Dev puts all these random things, because it brings more attention. He didn't have the 3rd rival done or the 2nd rival done. Whenever 1989 came out, he didn't have one done, so he said, I'm gonna make this, people will talk about it. he doesn't have the third rival done right now, so he brings out the grandma, he brings out the great-grandma. People are now waiting for the grandma and the great-grandma for the lore, but people really should be expecting the game. People really should be expecting Kizana. People should be expecting Oka. They should be expecting what they were told they were gonna get, and they still haven't gotten it yet. Just imagine this. Imagine that Yandere Dev was not the creator of this game, which might be hard to do because, you know, he is. But imagine it was made by someone else who had the passion to finish the main part of the game first. So currently, as we speak, just imagine, all the 10 rivals in the present day game would be finished. And then you could have a DLC of 1989 mode, and you can slowly learn about the lore as it gets updated throughout the game. And with the update schedule that Yandere Dev has, which I believe is twice a month, like the 1st of the month and then the 15th of the month, it would be really interesting, and the game could add so much. But no, he's the developer, so fortunately we do not have that situation. And if we continue with that imaginary situation, we would have so much information about Ayano, because in my opinion, Ayano is a really, really interesting character. Like, I remember when I was first following the game, Yandere Dev released a video that was like called like My Childhood or something like that, and it was about how Ayano always knew that she was different and that something was wrong with her, and she could never feel anything, and she always tried to get herself to feel something. And I just think that's such a good backstory for a character. That is such a good motivator. Like, the only way she gets feeling is through senpai. So if, you know, she doesn't get him, and the heartbreak and the snapping, it would work so well. But he doesn't focus on her. She's the main character. Ayano's the main character. It's gotten to a point where I have started watching videos where, like, from the fandom that do star Ayano and give her a personality. For example, there's a series on here on YouTube called Detrás de Juego, which means behind the game. It's a Spanish series, and it takes place in Yandere Simulator, and it's interesting. It's like a love triangle between Budo, the martial arts guy, and Taro and Ayano, and the story gets really interesting. And I'm still watching it. I haven't finished it yet, but like, I highly recommend it. It is in Spanish, but there are subtitles available for translation, and it's good. It's funny at times, it's shocking at times, and this creator, I believe her name is Victoria Land, she does it, I'm pretty sure, mostly all by herself, and she does such a good job. She uses MMD, which is Miku Miku Dance. That's a hard program to use, and yet it's really good. And honestly, that series keeps me more interested in Yandere Simulator than Yandere Simulator itself. And now comes to the question, what can be done? And after making this video and thinking about it for a long time, I don't know. I really don't know. I hope that the dev can get his act together and just finish the game, because it's been over a decade. There are people in this fandom or who have watched this game being in development starting from elementary school, and they're like now in college. That's like a perspective that I need some people to realize. I tried to make my thoughts as coherent as possible in this video, but I do ramble a lot. It's just something I do. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you want me to cover any more topics or talk about any other games, because I could talk about a lot of games. I love talking about my special interests. Please let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. Bye bye! Also, I forgot to mention, follow me on other socials. They will be in the link in the description. Okay, yep, that's it. Thank you so much for watching again. Bye bye!
Wait, something's wrong. Why is it so quiet? What happened to everyone?